Welcome to Executives at the Edge, the podcast from Amplify. Each episode features insights from the top network, cloud, and technology executives, giving you key takeaways to help you grow your revenue and bring solutions to market faster. I'm your host, Pascal Menezes. Join me as we explore thought-provoking perspectives from the leaders and changemakers propelling the AI-powered digital economy forward. I am really so excited to have Gorkem Yigit. He's a research director from Analysys Mason. And today we're going to cover some fascinating topics around network as a service, the market outlook, the adoption, how really AI and NaaS will come together. Also, this new kind of opportunities around sovereign AI, GPU as a service, and really what is NaaS and AI will come together in the future with agentic AI. So fascinating episode. And with that, I would love to introduce you, Gorkem. Welcome to Executives at the Edge. And for our listeners, if you can talk a little bit about yourself and Analysys Mason, that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me. You said, I'm a research director at Analysys Mason, and I lead up our network as a service, platforms, and infrastructure research program. So I'm looking at this evolution of, enterprise connectivity services from, traditional services to more and more as a service and NaaS kind of models. And I look at the transformation of the networks alongside with it, how it's becoming more and more automated, programmable, and on demand, as part of this research program. And Analysys Mason is a global consulting and research company in TMT, and I sit at the research division.
Well, that is very fascinating. Now, NaaS has so many definitions. How is Analysys Mason defining it, or yourself? And what's the market outlook and the market drivers for this?
Yeah, so we finally started to see some convergence, on the definition of NaaS. Finally, there's some common understanding, and of course, lots of credit, goes to Amplify, for all your efforts on that. And our definition and our view is very much aligned with yours at, Amplify. So we are talking about wide area underlay and overlay connectivity services, and this is delivered, as a service model. So programmable, automated, consumed on demand. So instead of the traditional multi-year long contracts and static networks, now we are talking about provisioning and managing network capacity on demand, and this is often through self-service portals, APIs. And this is coupled with, additional like layer 3 and 7 services, security, optimization. So it's really like, that cloud-like experience for networks, basically.
And so it's a very fascinating topic, because when we start to put all our assets under the NaaS umbrella, it was still not quite clear what the NaaS market would look like. And would people gravitate to NaaS? Of course, we were thinking back then, of course, everything's going to be automated. So that was very natural. Connectivity would be on demand, elastic. So that was very typical. But obviously we were seeing the rise of SD-WAN overlays on top of underlays and so on. And obviously clouds were happening. But there was still this kind of not sure if NaaS is going to take off with all the telcos. But I think now with AI and the demands of AI, it really needs a NaaS fabric. Do you have any thoughts on that? And do you have an idea of a market projection that you can give to the listeners or the growth?
Yeah, absolutely. Because and I agree with you. But also, this NaaS market is still, I would say, relatively early stage. But we are seeing a strong trajectory for growth, because we recently published a forecast on the NaaS market. And what we are seeing is we're estimating around $3.5 billion spending from enterprises, on NaaS, and with a strong growth for over the next 5 years. And we're expecting that it's going to reach around $15 billion globally by the end of this period. And yes, if we put this into context, it is still represents only a small portion of, the total, enterprise connectivity services. I mean, we are looking at roughly 2-3%. But by 2029, it's going to quadruple. So it's going to be around 8 to 9% of all of this. And yes, I mean, the absolute value looks quite modest today. But I guess what really matters is the rate of change, because, I mean, it's a very strong growth area. And this is one of the fastest growing segments in business networking. And I should also mention that these revenue figures and this overall NaaS opportunity is not just exclusive to traditional carriers, because NaaS market is actually sees lots of different players, and they're all vying for this the same prize. And we've got traditional carriers, there's SDCIs, co-location providers, some of the SD-WAN players, they are competing. So, and they all come with slightly different strength, different network reach, automation capabilities, but pretty much as I said in the definition, right? I mean, getting capturing a share in this programmable on-demand connectivity pie is the price for all these different players.
Now, looking at the market segments, let's take a multinational. Maybe multinationals we have on our enterprise leadership council quite a lot. I think 15 or 16 multinationals. I think from their point of view, they look at NaaS and I want to buy transports, connectivity, on-demand, elastic capabilities, programmable, and things like that. So they don't really they do all their stuff on top, their cybersecurity and so on. So that's at the very top of the food chain, multinationals. But as I go downstream into larger enterprises, medium enterprises, small business, where's the NaaS market really suited for? Because at the end of the day, is there a special sweet spot for the NaaS market?
Yeah, we are seeing roughly 3 areas of growth in that. So in addition to what you described, first of all, it's cloud networking, and this is the part of this cloud native transformation of enterprises, and they need to connect these distributed applications and data that span different cloud environments, because multi-cloud is a real trend, and if anything, it is getting stronger with AI, and we can talk more about that later. So cloud and multi-cloud networking is definitely the one area of growth. And second is data center interconnect, and AI is playing a very big role here. Of course, all that AI traffic that needs to be carried across different data center and then locations, but also the automation that requires between the wholesale or the data center providers, and that is going to be shortening those provisioning cycles is important. And third is the ongoing transition from Ethernet MPLS to direct internet. So scalable, agile direct internet is another area, because NaaS makes it particularly the cost efficient by letting that the scaling of bandwidth on demand instead of just paying for peak capacity. So all of these 3 areas is what's behind the growth of this the NaaS market.
But if you look at AI coming in at light speeds, I've never seen in my career how fast AI is coming in and how fast it's moving. And let's just take AI for NaaS, or NaaS for AI. Do you think that basically that there's data center interconnect, which we talked about, and so you'll see us at our global NaaS event? You're coming up in Dallas in November 10th, and you'll see us talk about there's the data center interconnect, and wavelengths play a predominant role, and that's part of our NaaS, connectivity, and then also carry Ethernet. And we will we will announce a certification for AI for carry Ethernet, so stay tuned for that. But what about the fact that there's also inference, and NaaS plays an important role? For example, if models are living either at the edges or some city or region, or it doesn't really matter where the models live, they have to connect to all the peripherals that drive that model, not just human beings, but cameras and IoT sensors and blah, blah, blah. But don't you think that's not going to be running on the internet for very critical infrastructure, especially sovereign AI and every country rebuilding their infrastructure for AI, doesn't NaaS play a significant role for inference also, for connecting these peripherals and making a programmable, it's a automated, and it's also, we've done carry Ethernet over broadband or DIA. We've also we support just broadband and DIA, our automation and so on. So how do you see that?
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. And we were looking at how that dynamic is shifting, from training to inferencing. And early this year, it was already at like 50-50, and there's a strong growth in inferencing. And going forward, inferencing is going to take over. So that's going to require, lots of distributed locations, to reduce latency and, provide better experience. And also the sovereignty, as you mentioned, right? Especially in Europe, Asia Pacific, and even in Middle East. So the data sovereignty rules they're getting more and more tight. So that means that the AI infrastructure is going to be more and more distributed. Across multiple geographies, sovereign clouds, and edge sites. So this distributed setup needs, more high performance and programmable connectivity. But also, if we look at the characteristics of this, the AI traffic, right, and inferencing and training or sovereignty, we are seeing, some of the features and traits that are different than the normal enterprise traffic, right? Because when it comes to AI now, we are talking about the short bursts of extremely high throughput, and this was for training. But now that we are moving to inferencing, it's becoming more and more low latency and reliability requirements, right? So as more and more models go live and deploy at edge sites, and also I should mention that AI agents are coming into the picture as well, and it's going to be lots of complex and dynamic flows, between these agents, and they're going to be doing these interactions across different clouds and geographies. So that means that all of these changes in traffic patterns and behaviors means that networks needs to be a lot more intelligent, programmable, and responsive, and even context aware. And that is what the NaaS is designed to deliver.
Yeah, and you're absolutely spot on, and I'm glad you see the same alignment. But I think there's also the sovereign AIs playing out hugely, and I think maybe UK and North America, or especially United States, has not really put in a sovereign AI strategy or play yet, or maybe never will. But many countries you talked about have, and they see AI as a critical juncture for their country's success, and they're investing heavily into the infrastructure. And at the heart of that sovereign AI are telcos. And telcos are now becoming, because they own all of the, what I call the toll bridges of fiber and copper and HFCs and whatever, broadband and so on. Does the sovereign AI play a critical role moving forward, where now the operators can now, since they are the sovereign AI infrastructures, do they then become the ability to then host a part sovereign AI, those GPUs as a service for companies that are within the country to train their models and their data and not leave that country? There's models that they'll be deploying for their special languages and smart cities and factories. Do you think all of this has a huge opportunity for telcos to make new revenue?
I believe so, yes. And we've been doing some research on this AI infrastructure and GPU as a service market. And maybe I should just talk a little bit about, how this GPU as a service market is evolving, because it's a very interesting developments going on at the moment with, hyperscalers. They so far dominated, the public cloud, but we are seeing, the rise of like neo clouds and some specialist, GPU providers. And these neo clouds, I mean, there are some famous ones like CoreView, Crusoe, but at the same time, we are seeing telcos doing a second wave of entry into the public cloud market through this AI infrastructure, because telcos, they tried public cloud in the past and it didn't really go very well. But this time they have, some strong assets and differentiators like sovereignty and trust and ability to, operate critical infrastructure. So overall, we are seeing this GPU as a service market is a 130 billion opportunity overall, and this is going to be shared between hyperscalers, neoclouds, and telecom operators. And telcos, they have some potential here. Right now, it is small because lots of telcos, they're still trying to figure out, their strategy. But we also see around 20 to 30 operators already launch their GPU as a service, and many of the cases they are like AI factories and focusing on the sovereign AI cloud. So there is, just infrastructure side of things. I guess, they can still, have a role in the compute side of things, but there is the networking side of it as well, because GPU as a service AI is not just about providing the compute infrastructure, but there's the big opportunity to combine compute and networking to provide something more differentiated and something that is more appealing to enterprises. So being able to provide the connectivity that meets those latency, availability, and data sovereignty and security requirements alongside the compute infrastructure is a really good opportunity for telcos, because if you look at other players in the market, hyperscalers and neoclouds, yes, they have some networking, but for telcos it is much more natural and it's more of their core business, and that they can bring into this market to get bigger opportunities.
So do you think of network as a service, not just programmable, automated, and all the major themes of underlays, overlays, cybersecurity, and clouds? Do you also see it as being a commercial model? And today, do they buy, they buy contracts and they do it over years. And traditionally, as a service means it's consumed as a pay-as-you-go or a monthly subscription. How do you see the commercial models of this emerging? Because it's very hard for these telcos to get in these ideas where, they have to invest all this capital and then amortize that over a subscription period or a pay-as-you-go versus substantial multi-year contracts.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, it is going a little bit slow because they still need to do, there's two sides of this, right? I mean, there's the demand side of it. I mean, they still need to convince their customers and enterprises to switch to those models. There are lots of digital companies out there, and they're already used to, having those, pay-as-you-go, on-demand kind of models. For them, it's fine. But not all industries or verticals, they're used to, having that kind of thing. So there is a bit of I guess, market education and convincing, they need to do on the demand side, but also on the supply side, right? I mean, telcos themselves, providing these commercial model, as a service. And I guess there are some regional differences as well. Maybe in North America, it's a little bit more on the capex driven side of things, but in Europe, the service was pretty much more advanced, compared to the other regions. But overall, I guess there is yes, it's a commercial model, but it's also mindset change as well and organizational setup. And there's also, I would say, it's not just retail, but there's a wholesale part of it, right? And we are hearing lots of challenges, that's commercial model side of things for NaaS, because the service providers are used to buying from others in different ways, and now that they get long contracts and procurement departments, they prefer that kind of stability and things like that. But the commercial model change requires, again, looking at things and commercial models in a different way and solving those organizational and mindset changes. It's taking a bit of time, but eventually, I guess, it's gonna be there.
But do you think with the agentic AI realm or the year of the era, do you think, and then we're already predicting this, that we're tying the ecosystem together, wholesale, retail, customer, because that's what we do really at the end of the day. We provide this east-west ability for the whole ecosystem to thrive as a network as a service. And do you think that as the agentic realm, that everything between enterprises, service providers, and the service providers to other partners all becomes with agents and models and human beings going away. And then the fundamental problem and the challenge we have is, how do you trust agents to do what? So you need authentication, authorizations, policy, what they can do. You need fingerprinting to make sure you don't have rogue agents. You need auditing. All of this stuff has to be put in place. And we're going to do this, and we're working on this. But there's identity providers also going that route. I mean, do you think that eventually the NaaS ecosystem just emerges out of the agentic realm?
It's a nice vision, I would say, but looking at the realities today, even for many service providers or ecosystem partners, lots of NaaS transactions that are happening through like self-service portals. They still prefer a human being to go through that process. And APIs, you can potentially just automate that using APIs, but it's still at the early stages right now. Not many people, they made the shift to APIs, and agents is the next step, right? I mean, once you can make that shift to APIs and it becomes more and more programmatic, then you can start thinking about using the agents. I agree, eventually we'll get there, but I guess it is a lot more important today to first let's get that base right, with using the APIs and more programmable interactions, and then I guess introducing the agents. It's gonna come later.
We've been working on these APIs across the NaaS ecosystem for a decade, including all of the service definitions and what we call the payloads on these APIs. And we've got great adoption. I think there's over 90 providers that some part of adoption to production to developing. And I think 175 or plus committing to getting there in some part of their life cycle towards that. But I have to say, it's a long journey, and I think you hit it smack on, that many providers are still grappling with their own automation within their networks. And so you really can't automate between networks, certainly not to get to the agentic realm if you have not even figured out how to modernize your BSS systems and so on. So I think what you're saying is there's a crawl, walk, run to many providers worldwide to be able to plug in together and work in a very automated NaaS ecosystem way. And that will be, still has to happen before the agentic realm can come in. Do I have that here right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, standardized APIs are there, right? I mean, you guys did a really great job on that, but I guess it's not just about, putting those APIs in front of, legacy systems, right? I mean, there's lots of back office and all the platforms and systems, they need to be transformed and to be able to, make the maximum use out of those APIs. And that's, transformation is still taking time. And as always, it's not just about technology, but it's about, the organization and people and, changing the way people think and work is also taking time. It's not really a problem of lack of APIs. There are lots of great APIs. It's really about everything else around it to enable those APIs.
Well, Gorkem, that is brilliantly said. And I couldn't concur more than what you just stated, because I see this worldwide when I talk to many providers. They're still grappling with the legacy systems. How do they integrate it? Some are just building new codes to be NaaS oriented. The others are still thinking people, and start parts of the world, people are inexpensive, and I can still use people and scripting and the old ways of doing things, and they haven't modernized. So all of this are gatekeepers to the modernization of NaaS, including the agentic realms. Okay, well, Gorkem, this has been a fascinating episode, and I really, really loved what you had to say. It really matches what we're doing within Amplify in our AI strategy for all of NaaS. And so looking forward to seeing you and really getting more into the depth of all of this great subject around NaaS and AI and so on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Executives at the Edge, brought to you by Amplify. Be sure to follow, share, and leave a review. Catch every episode on your favorite platform or visit us at amplify.net.